Hi, my name is Greg Alba,
And I'm John Humphrey.
and we are the Real Rejects. How are you guys doing today?
Hi guys, how are you
Great.
doing?
We are doing good. We were talking beforehand that this is the first time in a while that we're actually kind of nervous to talk because we've been watching both of you since we were kids. And so we're 54 years old already. So we've been watching you for so many decades.
Congrats on still being here.
Yeah, after all this time. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to talk with us. We're big fans. We're big fans. John, why don't you ask the first question?
Absolutely. So, Djimon, you've been in more comic book properties by now than either of us can count across DC, Marvel, and beyond. And Rhys, I mean, you had an iconic turn as Kurt Connors in The Amazing Spider-Man. So I'm curious as to how this experience making this particular comic book movie maybe stood out from those, and have the films affected your relationship to just the comic book medium as a whole? Djimon, why don't we start with you?
No, I mean, if anything, it enhanced my, my understanding of comic books, and certainly being part of this interpretation of some of the comic books. It's lovely to see. Certainly, the Kingsman is sort of like organic superheroes, if you will.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
There's no other film of the genre, the same genre, where you could view all these characters on screen and still feel like you belong, right? I mean, they are human like you. You potentially have the goods also to emulate what they stand for as well, and in that essence, it's completely different from the other superhero films. But also working with Matthew was in a way a discovery, a shocking discovery, because I didn't realize how picky he was about his action, sequences. And so that was a shocker coming into it. And obviously it was met with a tremendous challenge, a physical challenge. Obviously I'm referring to the amazing fight sequence that Rhys and I had that is quite iconic in this film, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
He tend to exceed himself every time from the previous film. So anyway, I'll let Rhys talk to you about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the great thing about, I think comic book cinema is a kind of natural evolution, because the comic book is essentially a storyboard. So they're very happy bedfellows, I think, and I think particularly in Matthew's case, Matthew uses the camera like a graphic novelist. He has an exquisite sense of symmetry when he wants us to absorb something in its 360ness. His camera grammar is amazing, so he has this great classical sense of symmetry, like what we remember from all those great old films from Lawrence of Arabia and those films set on these vast kind of exquisite canvases. But he also has the dynamism of making you feel like you're in the room when there's violence.
Right.
I've never worked with anyone who uses the camera so physically, if you like. And you're very consciously aware of that the whole time you're working with him. He's 10 steps ahead. It's almost like he has he doesn't have a brain, he has an IMAX cinema.
I love that.
So any idea he has in the instant, he's able to project it in his head and view it in all its glory and say this. He knows what it's going to look like. He knows what it's going to be. He knows how it's going to cut, and he knows how a room full of people are going to receive it. So that's really exciting to be around. So yeah,
absolutely. That action scene is definitely an iconic moment out of the whole Kingsman franchise. I was brilliant.
Absolutely.
Rhys, we have to ask, your performance as Rasputin it's batshit. It's just batshit awesome, and it's one of the wildest things we've seen all year, and it's glorious. How much freedom did you have in adapting such a larger than life character with so much historical mystique? I mean, was there? I'm just so curious about the process.
Well, some might say way too much freedom.
No, I loved it.
But
More
listen,
freedom.
The thing is, look, if you marry a figure like a real life figure like Rasputin with a franchise like Kingsman, there's going to be a lot of fun, because Rasputin himself was almost a figure from Kingsman anyway. He's almost like some kind of anti-superhero. There's so much myth and legend and mystique surrounding Rasputin, the real guy. You know, I was saying to someone earlier, you know, most guys in Europe at that time pretty much had exactly the same haircut, you know, but Rasputin seems to stand out, you know. It's like he's running the devil's, you know, wellness clinic, you know. The guy's, like you described, batshit crazy. He was described as the mad monk. You know what I mean? People would gather to watch him eat. He ate like wolves, you know. There'd always be food in his beard. He stunk to high heaven. He never watched. But still, there was something attractive about him. You know, women would swoon at his feet. Women, boys, and dare I say it, probably, you know, goats and piglets. The man's sexual appetite had no bounds. So, you know, everything I brought to Rasputin on the screen is based in fact. You know, that's the extraordinary thing. So we just, you know, Matthew just tweaked it and turned it up to 11 where it was necessary, and you know, that we played around. Yeah, so that's what happened.
It was absolutely delicious and definitely just as sexually attractive as you were describing it to me.
Oh, yeah. Yes. 110%. And speaking of attract, Djimon, I mean, Shola is such a charming and warm character, but also, you know, he can kick a whole lot of ass, and he's existing in, you know, a pretty unfriendly and unintegrated time anyway. Did you draw any inspiration from real life figures in building that character? And being that Shola is so close with Oxford in the film, Ralph Fiennes' character, did he work with you on building that relationship?
Of course, that was a bit of my own fantasy about Shola, and a couple of historical figures that I've picked from. Those figures were Senegalese of origin. They also were in the front line for the French Revolution, and then never talk about it. And it's almost like these guys have contributed to the peace of in Europe, and you know, and yet nobody ever addresses that. And so this was a take on their journey also. Back then, yeah. I mean, it was a little bit of reflection on that, and a little bit of my own fantastic look on Shola, and certainly, you know, freedom of expression here, because obviously we're having a fictional story here. So obviously it gives me, you know, license to sort of like play it however I see it fit. But it was he was a very organic character within that setting. So
well, we found it very sincere, and I know we have to wrap this up. The last question, you guys, like I mentioned earlier, you actually guys co-starred in films that I particularly grew up on watching a lot. Rhys, I'm sure a lot of people have associated like Notting Hill with you a bunch, and Djimon, I know you've been like Oscar caliber films like Amistad, Blood Diamond, but funny enough, the film I grew up on with you the most was actually the movie Deep Rising, and it's making me. I was just kind of curious to ask,
yes,
are there any films in both of your filmographies that you reflect on or revisit periodically? Djimon, we could start with you.
Well, first of all, I don't really revisit my films too much.
They're good.
It's worth it.
Thank you. But you know, for nervous reasons. But interesting, you mentioned that one that preceded Amistad, of course, which was yeah. No, I mean, I'm not sure. No, I don't really okay. my film. So therefore, that's my answer.
That's okay. And Rhys, yourself?
Yeah, I have one I'm particularly still fond of, and it didn't necessarily fly at the time, but I remember it with such affection, and it's still a film I love, and it kind of reflects the sort of movie or world or storytelling that I enjoy, and it's a film called Human Nature.
Okay.
It was a Charlie Kaufman script.
Yes.
Directed by Michel Gondry, starring Tim Robbins, Patricia Arquette, myself. Peter Dinklage appears in it. A great, crazy little movie, you know, where I play a kind of feral child. It's like an anti-Tarzan film.
Yeah.
Where this guy is taken from living in this feral, I think he's raised by rhesus monkeys, And then Tim Robbins, who's a behavioral scientist, discovers him in the forest and brings him back to society and attempts to civilize him. And he's able to teach him table manners and everything, but they can't quell his kind of sexual desires.
There's a theme here.
He continually is humping things like a dog. You know?
Well, the similarity with Rasputin.
Yeah.
Perfect double feature.
I just dug myself a big hole, man. Yeah, but anyway, it's a film I'm really fond of. Oh my God, now I'm on the couch.
You're right.
Gotcha. Thank you both so much. This is one of the highlights of our year. Thank you both so much, and people are going to enjoy the hell out of this.
Thank you very much.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Yeah,
Take
thank
care.
you.
Hi, my name is Greg Alba,
And I'm John Humphrey.
and we are the Real Rejects, knocking each other's microphones out. Hi, Harris. It's an absolute pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. You were great in the film. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much. Yeah, nice to talk to you guys. Loving the chairs. Proper.
Oh, thank you. So that's we only bought them for the compliments, so I really appreciate that. Thank
We've
you
never
very much.
even actually seen any of these characters on screen.
Yeah. Our first question to you, this was something that was really popping up into our mind when watching this, was you get to work with so many great and formidable actors in this movie, between Djimon Hounsou, Rhys Ifans, Gemma, and of course Ralph Fiennes, who you spend a great deal of time with on screen. What was it like bouncing off of so many incredible actors, and being that Ralph Fiennes plays your father? Did you guys work closely together in developing your specific character?
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? Rafe and I were lucky in the sense that we got along immediately. We had a good rapport. I was very nervous to work with him. I was intimidated. I was intimidated by his body of work. He's someone I've admired for years, and same with Gemma and Djimon and Rhys. You know, they're all people that I've watched and sort of marveled at throughout the years. So when you're faced with the possibility to, share the screen with them, it's intimidating. But they're all such lovely people that they put me at ease very quickly, and I just felt like we were able to play and try stuff out. And yeah, I think it's like also hard not to just want to watch what they're doing when you're in a scene with them, because you just start getting lost in it and just being like, oh, that was really good, that that was you're like, oh, crap,
I can imagine
what's my line
Well, to your credit, I really feel like you held your own, and I feel like that is an actor's dream come true.
Absolutely. And I mean, this movie is an interesting one for Conrad, because obviously he gets to occupy both the world of the gentleman spy for part of it, and then, going into a more authentic sort of World War I set piece, which proves both brutal and pivotal for your character. The scene in No Man's Land, especially with that, particular fight, was one of our favorites, I think, across the whole movie. And so I was wondering, if you could talk about preparing for that, like the grueling process of shooting those trench and battle sequences.
Yeah. Early on, Matthew said to me, how much do you want to do physically? And I sort of saw that as a little bit of a challenge and was like, well, I'll do as much as I can, I'll do everything. And then later realized that how hard that would be, how physically demanding that would be. But I had a trainer for like 6 months leading up to it that ran me through a lot of like military stuff. He was an ex-paratrooper. And so we spent a lot of time together and just kind of conditioning my body. And you have these absurd moments when you go to work and you go home and someone was like, oh, how was your day? And it was like, yeah, it was good. I was learning to do these knife fights, and I was like crawling through forests with an ex-paratrooper. I was da-da-da. And it's like, it becomes so absurd that what you do at work each day. So I was lucky, man. I was lucky in the sense that I got put through my paces. I picked up new skills, and yeah, you kind of have to when you're doing those things, because it is so well orchestrated and planned, that all these different elements, if you mess up and you don't do your moves right, or you don't hit the marks correctly, you're going to get a bit of shrapnel in your face, or you're going to get hit by a certain weapon. And it's like, it's you have to be precise with it.
Well, I thought it was visually beautifully realized, and another just compliment to you as well. I don't want to just make this a compliment section, but the following moment, I don't want to do any spoilers, but the following moment, that was a very emotional moment for Conrad, was especially a highlight for us in our viewing experience watching that as well. The gentleman spy is a classic character archetype. almost like a special club for British actors, I'd imagine. Was there anything in particular you were hoping to bring to this kind of character? And how did you go about balancing that more rough and tumble aspects of portraying a soldier?
Well, if there is a club, I have not been invited to it. So if you find of any sort of secret members club, I'd love to know about it because I feel left out. But I don't know. I think Conrad is someone who really wanted to be defined by his bravery, and that might sound corny, but he at a time where everyone was kind of being judged by that. Everyone was so quick to deem everyone as cowards for not serving a cause, but the reality is that no one really understood what that would mean for them. No one understood the human cost of what the war would be, and I think I just tried to also bring that element into it, that eagerness, and I think that's something that is common now, is that people are willing to go and serve, and very admirably serve for a cause that is beyond them.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think it shines through.
Definitely, yeah. I think both of our favorite things to hear about, especially on a movie like this, is just the type of conversations that might have been had off camera between takes, and being, like we said before, you're surrounded by so many veteran actors, and you've got a director like Matthew Vaughn. Just what would you guys talk about between takes when the camera wasn't rolling? And was anybody particularly funny or friendly, or impart any sage actorly wisdom?
Well, Rafe is notoriously serious about the craft, and that's incredible. But he also has an ability to be funny and sort of silly in between, which is something I didn't expect. But Djimon and I had a scene where we were sparring, and we had our tops off, and it was like a little bit cold. And I know that Djimon and I were both very cold, so I feel like we both just spent the whole 2 days just sort of looking at each other and being like, yeah, I'm cold. Yeah, you're cold. Yeah.
It looked great. Yeah. Both of you, A+.
I guess my last question would be, Matthew Vaughn, in our opinion, is one of the best directors working today. And this film sees him balancing so many different tones and outlandish characters, historical figures and whatnot. What kind of vibe does he draw on set? And did any of it make sense in the room?
He knows what he wants. He's very straightforward with his direction. He doesn't beat around the bush, which I appreciate. I'd rather complete honesty. He's not afraid to shout out across the set a piece of direction. He's not shy in that sense. I remember a scene where I was just about to start, and he was like, "Don't be shit," and
I love that.
All right, yeah, I'll try not to be, but that was fine and I like that because we'd already built a rapport, and he was leading the charge as such. So yeah, I think like with a film like this, there's a lot going on. You need someone at the helm who's going to stay calm and keep it all sort of flowing in the right way, and he does that very well. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome to hear. Thank you so much for your time. I think people are really going to enjoy the hell out of this movie, and congratulations again. It's a total blast of a film. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Nice one.
Take care.
Cheers.